Hey, Gil in Texas. Good to see your name pop up. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Matt. Good morning, everyone.
Hey, Michael, did you get my email this morning?
Oh, no, not yet, unless it just came in the last couple of minutes.
It just came. It just came. No worries. I'll talk to you about it later.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just got it. I just got it right now.
I'm all set, Matt, when you are.
Okay, yeah, let's go for it, Michelle. Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Hope your summer is starting off really great. We have a really exciting session today around learning more about chips, and excited to hear that. I just came back from Germany and I was able to spend time with someone who is implementing the European version of the CHIPS Act. So I'm very excited to learn more from today's session. So we ask if everyone can please put your name and affiliation in the chat. And with that, I will pass it to our Executive Director, Matt Bogosian.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Michelle is from the Century Foundation and one of our longtime partners. Sounds great, Michelle. Hopefully that's going to be a presentation in the future, what we can learn from what the Europeans are doing. So very cool. Yeah. So yeah, as Michelle said, I'm the executive director of AMCC. It's a nonprofit. If you're new to this, AMCC is a nonprofit organization built by and for systems leaders like you, either as a regional manufacturing community leader or a BFF in the public or private sector, nonprofit sector. Everyone working together to create more sustainable development outcomes in the manufacturing sector. And I wanted to say a little bit up front, we have a couple presentations today, but before that, I just wanted to kind of call out this thing. We've talked a little bit about, systems leadership, which is the idea of, it's really kind of a burgeoning science that, like from whatever perch you happen to occupy in your organization, like being a part of AMCC is a kind of an applied approach to systems leadership and the kind of teamwork that it requires. Like I said, many scientists are now calling it systems leadership. There is, I think I've dropped in the chat before, and we've had an AMCC updates, this good article that Harvard did kind of describing what systems leadership is and how we can all advance it from whatever perch we happen to occupy. But the additional link I wanted to let you know is just earlier this year, the entire government of the United Kingdom just adopted systems leadership as a best practice for their nations, all their nation's civil servants. So David can drop that chat in there. And so check it out, use it. We're all, we all have a lot to learn. You guys are already in the game. Let's keep working together on that and spread this burgeoning science to more people so we get more collective impact. Since you're on these calls, or if you haven't been on before, we have them every non-holiday Monday, which means we're not going to have a call next Monday, but we have this call every Monday at this time for 30 minutes, and it augments our AMCC update constant contact newsletter that goes out every week. So it's always jam-packed. David Van Sicklen, our operations director, helps me put that together with all of your input. So a lot of the things that are in the AMCC update are tidbits that come from you and your manufacturing region or from our BFFs that want to get the word out, that are all trying to work together to weave these interventions so we get more productive outcomes. I would just want to highlight before our presentations, which are also embedded in the AMCC update information about those, I wanted to highlight the Economic Recovery Corps Fellowship Program that's in the AMCC update. And this is kind of, one tactic to build more systems leadership in your own organizations, in your region. There's going to be 65 fully funded fellows from this program for over 2 years. We're going to be putting together an application with some regions, we hope, if you all express interest. So let David and I know about that if you want to do that. The deadline for that is at the end of the month. So some exciting things. Check out the AMCC update. Thanks for all of those putting their names and affiliation in chat. I'm going to do that right now. So let's all stop here, put our name and affiliation in chat so we know who our folks are that are on this call. And, if you want to put your email in there, people can contact you. You can also get a hold of David if you want to contact somebody. So there you go. It's great to see our friends in Idaho on here and so many good public and private partners. Gil in Texas, good to see you back in the fold. Let's see. So on to presentations. So we don't, these are 30-minute calls, very quick, very efficient. Today we usually have like one presentation, but we have 2 short ones today because there are a lot of federal interventions out there and we want to get the word out there. The first is on the Build to Scale program. And then the second one's going to be on the NIST Chips for America office information. So we're lucky enough on the first front. So we'll do both of their presentations and take some questions at the end. Okay, so the first one is from Meisha McDaniel from EDA's Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And so go ahead, Meisha. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure, and I feel very grateful to be able to present to you all today. I know that you have a packed agenda, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started by talking about EDA's Build to Scale competition, formerly known as Regional Innovation Strategies. This year, we'll be awarding our 10th cohort of funding, and so we're really excited about all the progress that we've made through this program, higher funding allocations, more grantees, more private funding leverage, as this is a one-to-one match funded grant program. And so I just want to give you some highlights from this year's competition, since many of you may already be familiar with it. And we also have some really important developments that connect to the conversation around systems leaderships and also inclusive innovation. So starting with that, I also want to highlight that Brian Parker is on this call. He is a longtime Office of Innovation, Regional Innovation Strategies, Build to Scale partner and supporter. He's also a subject matter expert in our program. So if you feel more comfortable, or if you have more relationships with him or anybody else at EDA, feel free to talk to them as well. Thank you.
Oh, Meisha, yeah, Brian is like a longtime BFF. So he's on these calls. He's just a stalwart. So yeah, we know Brian very well. Thank you.
So you probably know that we have a seed fund, a capital focused part of the competition, but we also have a venture challenge. Looking at our previous grantees, we have a lot of successful manufacturing related projects within the venture challenge. That's also where the majority of this year's funding, we plan to award no less than $40 million within this category. So I'll definitely focus on that. What we're looking to support is the formation of scalable startups, also startups that are connected to industries, industry clusters, and being able to grow these industry clusters with inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems through the formation and the scaling of incubator and accelerator projects. We're interested in technology transfer and commercialization, and then also just establishing the partnerships, relationships, and local infrastructure necessarily to catalyze regional technology-based economic development over the long term. Some of the ineligible uses of funds within this program are construction, but for your community, I definitely want to let you know that the purchase of equipment and installation is an eligible activity. And so I just want you to be aware of that if you're thinking that off the top you may not be eligible. EDA does not, most programs do not award money to individuals, and there are very few for-profit entities that are allowed to participate as a lead applicant. However, private entities can participate as a contractor, and they also can participate through a public-private partnership, possibly through an economic development organization or a venture development organization model. Otherwise, most not-for-profit and public sector entities are eligible to apply. We do allow for organizations to set up shared services, such as mentoring, legal, IP development, SBIR, STTR application support. However, subsidizing the expenses of an individual participating firm is not an eligible activity. while we do allow for people to gain access to these industry opportunities by working with startups, we do not fund the establishment of an internship program. So I know that we have a lot of university stakeholders who might be interested in connecting the dots between entrepreneurship and workforce development. Just wanted to let you know about that off top. And we have 3 different tiers within the Venture Challenge, the 2 being the Build tier, which is for new programs. It might be something that is unique to your regional innovation ecosystem and the needs that have been identified through years of collaboration or a specific report that you want to address through a Build to Scale pilot program. It needs to be something that can be measured. We're looking at outputs related to job creation, public and private investment, and something that will be sustainable over the course of beyond the period of performance, which is typically 3 years for build and scale projects. And you can get up to $750,000 within that tier. We also have a scale tier, which is for existing regional initiatives that have a proven track record. And through those projects, you can get anywhere from over $750K up to $2 million. These are higher allocations or higher funding thresholds than in prior years. But what if your organization is kind of not ready and not in like a tech hubs type of area, is very nascent and new to the journey? I want to let you know about the new Ignite tier. These support planning activities, but they're a little bit shorter duration. We're looking for 18 to 24 months. Smaller scale pilots that might not engage as many different participants over a regional area, but it may just form kind of necessary relationships, partnerships, and gives people time to experiment and learn what they can do to grow their ecosystem and identify the needs so that they can apply for build and scale tier projects in the future. And that funding allocation amount for projects is up to $300,000. To talk about potential projects, you definitely check out our website. You can look up EDA, Build to Scale. You can find it, our historical project examples. These people may be our organizations, leaders may be familiar to you. Fuse Hub, they won our 2021 competition. There is a great example of a scale project through their existing manufacturing entrepreneurial assistance program. We also have Weber State University over in Utah, which has brought together 3 statewide leaders to harmonize their services and identify opportunities to build on their regional strengths in the aerospace and advanced manufacturing industries. And I also want to go back to regional innovation strategies, just because there was a brand change in 2020, just a line that if you heard about an I6 challenge, that is also the Venture Challenge today. And Purdue University Northwest presented a really compelling commercialization. That's something that we're definitely trying to prioritize in this year's competition around NSF's critical emerging technologies and opportunities to facilitate commercialization and tech transfer. And to conclude, I wanted to share this timeline for the competition. If you don't already know, the Notice of Funding opportunity is available on our website. We have a new submission platform called Edge. So if you are kind of familiar with it in the past, but don't really know what's going on right now, I definitely suggest that you look at our frequently asked questions and the portions of the NOFO that relate to how to submit the application. The deadline for applications is July 28th, and we anticipate awards to be announced by the end of the fiscal year in the fall. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Meisha. Nice work. Questions come in. A classic one after our next presentation that you might want to think about is a description of, the burden. There's a better way to say it, but the burden of applying. Like, what's it going to take to apply? So it's good to have the deadline in there. We'll circle back at the end and ask you about that question and others that come up. So let's turn now to Jesse Stoneman from the NIST Chips for America office to get an update from what's going on in their work. Jesse?
Great. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. And you're seeing my screen. We are all set up to go. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciate your time. I am from the CHIPS Program Office, the Public Engagement Team at NIST of the Department of Commerce. Very excited to be talking with all of you. So I'm going to be running through these slides quite quickly today in the interest of time. But at the end of this presentation, I'll share some resources. And I just want to highlight that we do have recordings and full presentations of slides like these and others that go into much more depth in our webinars on our website. So if you're curious about that, encourage you to check that out. So CHIPS for America, what are we trying to accomplish? The CHIPS and Science Act, which is a bipartisan piece of legislation, was signed into law in August of 2022, and it provides the U.S. Department of Commerce with $50 billion for a suite of programs, which we'll be talking about today, and really to strengthen and revitalize the U.S. position in semiconductor research, development, and manufacturing. And there are three key policy reasons behind CHIPS for America, and that's economic security and competitiveness, national security, and future innovation. So when we think about CHIPS for America at the Department of Commerce, we're talking about primarily two different programs. The first is our Manufacturing Incentives Program, which has $39 billion allocated to it. And this is really designed to attract large-scale manufacturing investments in the United States. We separately have $11 billion for research and development. And there are really four key programs that are a part of the research and development side here. And we'll talk about those briefly today. And this does not include the great work that's happening across other agencies across the federal government, including DoD, the Department of State, NSF, and Treasury. So certainly this is, one core piece of the program, but we're excited to work in partnership with other federal agencies. So we're going to spend the first part of this presentation talking about the $39 billion program, or the Manufacturing Incentives Program. And under that $39 billion program, we have laid out three separate funding opportunities. We released our first funding opportunity on February 28th, and that was really targeted towards chip makers, or more specifically, commercial leading edge, current, mature node fabrication facilities, as well as back-end facilities. And we have two additional funding opportunities currently planned. The second will be focused on material suppliers and equipment manufacturers. So really focus on the supply chain for the fabrication facilities. And then the third is for R&D facilities. Now this is distinct from the R&D program because it is focused on the construction, expansion, and modernization of facilities that are dedicated to R&D. But I should say that across the two different programs are working together hand in glove, as we are, of course, trying to accomplish the same goals. One piece I'll just identify here, which I think is really important to highlight, is that although we have three separate funding opportunities, we are accepting statements of interest for all of them right now. So to the extent that you are engaging with an organization that's considering applying for CHIPS funding, we would strongly recommend that they submit a statement of interest. It helps convey to us what projects are out there so that we can plan how to best allocate the dollars that we have. And it's totally non-binding, and it's a fairly low lift in terms of providing a pretty high-level project description. And so to the extent that you are aware of organizations that are contemplating application, we would strongly recommend having them submit a statement of interest as a first step. We've actually already received over 300 statements of interest, so we've seen a tremendous amount of interest in the program, which is fantastic, and we continue to see that number rising all the time. So behind these funding opportunities, I wanted to share briefly our vision for success. And this is laid out in detail in our Vision for Success paper, which we released in February alongside the funding opportunity. And it really talks about the goals that we have to achieve by the end of the decade. And there's a lot to dig into here, but the key area that I want to highlight for this conversation is that by the end of the decade, our goal is that the United States will have at least 2 new large-scale clusters of leading-edge logic fabs. And what does that mean in this context? Meisha used the term cluster as well. For our purpose, clusters are geographically focused areas, geographically bounded areas with multiple commercial scale fabs, a large and skilled workforce, nearby suppliers, R&D facilities, utilities, and specialized infrastructure. And so that's really a core goal of the program that I wanted to highlight here. And as mentioned, there are additional really kind of key areas, key targets that we want to achieve by the end of the decade in memory, in advanced packaging, and in current generation and mature node chips. And our Vision for Success paper really lays those out in detail. Some of the key themes that sort of, to help us accomplish these goals include these 5 areas here. So this program is really meant to spur and to bring in private investment, to catalyze private investment alongside the funding that we have, but simultaneously to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is an absolutely critical objective of this program. Furthermore, building a skilled and diverse workforce will be critically important. We need to have the workforce to build and to work at these fabs. And so certainly that is a core part of this program. Engaging with U.S. partners and allies has been of central importance from the outset. And certainly we have a team that has traveled the world in support of that goal. And then finally, we want to ensure that we're driving economic opportunity and inclusive economic growth, really seeing the Chips for America programs helping to create vibrant communities through this process. More specifically on our first funding opportunity, we have 6 program priorities which correlate to the 6 evaluation criteria laid out within the NOFO. I'll talk about these briefly, but again, there's much more to say on all of these topics. So encourage you to check them out in more detail on our website. Economic and national security is the primary lens through which we will be evaluating applications given the goals of this program. We will also be looking at the commercial viability of the applications that are submitted, the projects that are submitted, the financial strength of those projects, the technical feasibility and readiness. Is this executable? Developing a strong workforce. The applicants are required to submit detailed workforce plans for both their construction and their facility workforces. And then finally, broader impacts. How are projects going to make a difference in areas like R&D, creating opportunities for small and diverse businesses, environmental stewardship, and again, that community vitality. Briefly, I wanted to touch on our workforce development vision. As mentioned, workforce development is actually critical to our national security. We need to ensure that we have the right folks in place to be able to build and operate these facilities. And so, we really need all hands on deck to be able to meet the scale of the ambition of this program, and it is indeed quite ambitious. And we really see the diversity that we have here in the U.S. as a major competitive advantage. But of course, we need to ensure that folks have the opportunity to participate, to be brought in. And so we want to ensure that we're creating opportunities for Americans from all communities, and particularly historically underserved communities. And also, we really want to see workforce solutions that bring a diverse set of stakeholders to the table. The employers and industry, community colleges, workforce and economic development organizations, community-based groups, labor unions, and the vast array of others who have a lot to contribute here. We really believe that we need to make sure to bring all of those folks together. Just to get tactical here for a moment on timeline for the, again, $39 billion, the manufacturing incentives program. Our application process for the first funding opportunity is laid out here. It's a 5-step process. It is designed to be iterative and holistic. And as you can see, the pre-application piece is optional, but it is strongly recommended because it creates an opportunity for our office to provide feedback to applicants. So they have an understanding of how their pre-application aligns with sort of our vision and goals for the program, so that that feedback can be incorporated into a strong full application. We are currently open for business, if you will, for all leading edge applicants. And we have opened our pre-application period for current generation, mature node, and back-end facility applicants, with access to the full application starting on June 26th, 2023. So just later this month. These are open on a rolling basis, so there's no sort of deadline per se, but strongly encourage interested folks to get their applications in. And just to reiterate what I mentioned earlier, the statement of interest part of the process, that first step, is open to everyone, not just those who would qualify for the first NOFO. Okay, very briefly, I also want to mention some of the pieces of our CHIPS R&D program, because there's a lot of really exciting work happening there. You know, the same trends that shifted a lot of our manufacturing in the semiconductor space away from the US have also exposed kind of vulnerabilities and opportunities in R&D. And so we are, through our R&D program, that $11 billion, we are dedicated to addressing these key challenges around, you know, having not an insufficient number of facilities to prototype, test, and prepare to mass produce new technologies, to ensure that we have the right workforce in place, and also to ensure that we are able to maintain and continue to build our leadership position in innovation in the United States. And so to address these challenges, the CHIPS R&D program will be composed of sort of 4 key programs. The first is the National Semiconductor Technology Center, which is really sort of the centerpiece or the anchor for the CHIPS R&D program. It will be designed as a sort of a hub, a centralized hub with affiliated technical centers spread around the country. And really, it's a private-public partnership to help drive you know, kind of key priorities in research and development in the semiconductor space. We'll also have a national advanced packaging manufacturing program in order to, you know, get to become leaders in advanced packaging specifically. We have up to 3 additional Manufacturing USA institutes that will help advance research and commercialization of semiconductor manufacturing technologies. And so they'll be a part of the Manufacturing USA network that already exists today. And then finally, NIST has a really robust metrology program, and there will be metrology focus in the semiconductor space as part of the CHIPS R&D program as well. And with that, a quick summary. I know I just shared a tremendous amount of information in a very short span of time. So we would strongly encourage you to first join our mailing list. I can't be a part of a public engagement team and not push for a mailing list, but it is actually a great place to get the latest information. We push all of our key updates to that mailing list. So strongly encourage you to join at our website, chips.gov. Tremendous number of resources there, the actual funding opportunities, the application process, the vision paper, all of the webinars that I mentioned. So really there's a ton there to dig into and to build upon the very brief overview that I gave today. And there are some contact emails here as well, should you have any questions that you wanted to follow up on from today. So thank you so much, and back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, and we're going to stay a few minutes later. We usually keep these right at 30 minutes, but if you guys can stay on for a little Q&A, and if you wouldn't mind, David, or maybe you guys can just drop your emails, Meisha and Jesse, into the chat so people can grab those if that makes sense. I guess I have one, right off the bat question for, I mentioned this to you, Meisha, on the Build to Scale, which is a more mature program. What's the burden of, applying? Can you give a quick nutshell on that?
Yes. First off, we want to make sure if you haven't started this already, or if this is your first federal funding opportunity, please register your organization in sam.gov and make sure that you have an active UEI so that you can access the submission platform, which is now called EDGE, and make sure you keep in mind the deadline of July 28th. As we're experiencing with our STEM Talent Challenge, there may be, very likely will be systems issues. So we encourage you to get your application in well in advance of that July 28th date. Another major source of burden for potential applicants is the matching share commitment, as this is a one-to-one match is required for all funding levels from the Build to Scale and the Ignite. And we ask that as I mentioned, private organizations, for-profits can participate in projects, but if a contractor does want to provide matching share, they also can't, if a contractor wants to be involved in the project, they cannot provide matching share because that match contribution would be ineligible. And we also accept in-kind contributions as well as cash, and that is inclusive of waived indirect cost above the de minimis. So you would need to apply for non-public entities. Make sure that you have a letter of support from a state or a political subdivision of the state. If you contact oie@eda.gov if you have questions about what satisfies that requirement. So just off of the top, those are some of the common application requirements in addition to the budget narrative and a project narrative, which most of you all are probably familiar with.
That's great, Meisha. Thank you for that. Let me flip to you, Jesse, on the CHIPS statement of interest. You mentioned that. What is that like? A 5-page thing? This would be helpful for our leaders here, when they talk to others to encourage these kinds of statements of interest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just a brief kind of introduction to the project that you might want to be funded through the CHIPS program. And as I mentioned, it is non-binding, so it is designed to be a low lift and to really just help initiate the conversation with our office, provide our office with insight into the kind of really wide range of projects and interests that are out there. But also, if the potential applicant is interested, this is the kind of pathway to initiating a dialogue with our office as well.
And then here's a question coming in from Mike in Florida. I guess this is to you, Jesse. Will the recordings of the recent Industrial Advisory Committee meeting last week be made available?
Great question. I am not sure, so I will have to follow up with you on that. I believe that has been our practice historically. And let me just provide a link to where that would be on our website.
Cool. We're over time, but this is we got a couple more minutes if anybody has any additional questions. Thank you both for putting your emails into chat so people can grab those and go directly to you. I think that's a really useful tactic. We record this, as you all know, so that's that can be helpful when you're trying to socialize what's going on with both of these exciting programs. Jesse, one of the things on this the vision of success paper, I think on behalf of all of these regions around the country, for AMCC, it seems like that would be a good place for us to dig into and exchange what we've been learning over the years about kind of the ecosystem, the manufacturing ecosystem, and how it can succeed. We call it the big fix. David could drop into the chat, how we've been identifying, going back to IMCP program. That's this framework that we've been utilizing in regions to understand the best evidence of how an ecosystem can thrive around manufacturing. So that would be a good thing to crosswalk with your vision of success, so we can understand that and maybe modify what we've been doing or share what we've learned along the way. So that's a good one. Any other questions for Meisha or Jesse about these two important programs? Awesome. Well, you have their emails. You know where we are, David and Matt. And just a reminder, we have no call next week. Oh, there's a question from our partners at Accenture, Kevin, Jessica, Jessie, I guess this is to her. Is it on the what you just shared in this PowerPoint? Is that on the CHIPS site?
Yes, not identical, but very similar. And honestly, with a lot more detailed information. I just pasted the link to our webinars. There are recordings and then also copies of the slides there. Certainly our NOFO launch webinar from February probably gives the broadest overview of the program, but there are deep dives into a variety of topics: national security guardrails, workforce development, environmental provisions, etc., and also on the R&D side as well. So lots of good content there.
That's great, Jessie. Thank you very much. And Meisha, thank you. Thank you both. Thanks all for being on this call. This recording will be made available. And just a reminder, well, let me send it back to you, Michelle, but we have no call next week. So go ahead, Michelle. Thanks for closing us out.
No problem. Wishing everyone a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you at 11:30 Eastern Time on Monday, June 26th. Thank you so much, Meisha and Jessie, for the fantastic presentations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.